I was a floor broker in Teledyne. I told you they moved me into Teledyne. That thing was one of these stocks that just go up and down 6, 7, 8 points intraday, up and down. And the CBOE didn't have, they were all, everything was handwritten. All the orders, they didn't have all the machines and stuff that they had that came on, and eventually everything became electronic. So if they had a spread order, okay, it would be a buy order stapled to a sell order, okay? Well, this guy in his hurry, when he hit the thing, the staple was like right on the edge, and the two pieces came apart. And I thought I had two separate orders. And I started, the market was going down, and I started telling I was going down. So I just, I wasn't in a hurry to buy anything, so I started selling, get out of this thing as quick as I could and everything. I figured I could buy, take care of this other one. So when they came in and said, how you doing on the spread? I said, what spread? The spread. I said, what spread? What spread? You were supposed to buy, Teledyne 350s and sell a Teledyne 370s and everything. I said, what? I'm going through my deck and everything. And, oh, my God. So this one market maker heard this. So he knew I was caught. And immediately, what a jerk, he immediately started buying these calls back and everything like that. By the time I got out of this thing, I lost about, $7,000 or $8,000, which for a floor broker, that was a pretty big hit for floor brokers. You have to remember, when you're a floor broker, when the orders used to come out, they'd have a blue copy on top, a blue carbon, they have different layers, and the cells were yellow, sort of a yellowish. But there are times when the people on the phone clerks don't tear off that yellow, okay? And it's a buy order underneath there. It's a copy that they keep. So you got to remember, read the order. You don't just say, sell something and then you realize it was a buy till the next day and you have an error and stuff like that. But yeah, those kind of errors. But nothing as bad as Teledyne. When I was trying to make my comeback, I always tried to, Jerry said, I don't want you carrying any position. I don't want you being more than, I think it was 1,000 deltas long or 1,000 deltas short. Because every morning he would check, see what my positions were. And I got caught in this position. And I should have just got out of it. But the market makers were, they were all stuck. It was just one of those things where somebody came in at the end of the day. So we all got caught. We couldn't get out of it. And Jerry, he circled us like it was like in high school, red and everything. See me! Exclamation point! But it just when you don't have that much money in your account, you don't want to carry a bad position. But there was no way to get out of it. Everybody was in the same boat. I was the clown of the pit. When the reader used to come out on Thursdays, and we'd be, I couldn't sit very well, but when I was down there, somebody had a reader, and I picked it up, and I'm leafing through it, looking at the movie reviews, and pictures and stuff. And I'm looking at this one picture, and I got my pencil out, and I put some glasses on this face, and I put a mustache on there. I used my eraser, and I erased back, so this guy had this balding area and stuff like that, so I erased that, and I had a bubble coming out with some crazy thing that this guy always used to say, and I just happened to show it, and everybody's laughing, even the guy I did it on. So it got to the point where I was doing these cartoons, basically, and some of them were not nice, okay? They were kind of derogatory and stuff, and there was a girl in our pit. She was a floor broker, and I picked on her, today that it would not be very politically correct. But you know what? On a slow day, she would take a break. Even though I picked on her with some of these cartoons, she'd come back on a Thursday, sneak up behind me because our pit was right by the escalator, grab that reader and throw it on the floor and say, now get to work. When the new orders came in, when they had the machines that would have the orders, so you had these stacks of tickets, and they would unwind as they went down. One time a runner came in there. I grabbed some a stapler or something like that, and as he turned around, I took that one thing and I stapled it to the back of his jacket, and he's going out of the pit and down the floor, and this thing is just unwinding all the way down until somebody finally caught him. So stupid things like that. There was a guy who was trading in the pit next to me. He was a little Jewish guy, very good trader, very good trader, but he was short, so he wore cowboy boots. I didn't know I was this good with arts and crafts, but I took our trading tickets, before everything was electronic, and I'm tearing them up and everything like that, and I made these spurs. And I got some Scotch tape, and I'm crawling into the pit next to me on the floor, and I Scotch taped these things to the back of his cowboy boots. They had these little spurs on there, and the pit's going crazy and everything. And he's one where everybody's laughing about. Not to be outdone, I kept going, and I made a couple of little holsters, and you could just, with the Scotch tape back then, you could just flip it like that, and it would stick. So I had a couple of little holsters. And these guys are going, I can't figure, what are you guys laughing about, and everything like that. And I came up to him again, Rabbi Tex, this pit ain't big enough for the both of us. And there's this one guy who was a heavy smoker. He started laughing so hard, we thought we were going to have to get him oxygen. He couldn't stop coughing and laughing and everything like that. And when he finally found out about it, everything like that, the name stuck. Every time everybody saw it, Rabbi Tex, how's it going today? With a lot of respect, okay? Because I was a floor broker. I know what it's like. And we always protected Ann. That was the last pit I was in. Ann was an excellent broker. If she had a jam, she had an error or something like that, we'd eat it for her. Because, we know she'd make it up for us. When things got busy and we'd have all these other floaters in the pit, okay, she would make sure that we got the orders. Because we protected her. And I remember that, when I had a couple guys protect me when I was when I first started out as a broker. Very important. I hated the floating brokers that came in who had customer orders, market orders, and they used to squeeze them. I hated it. There was one guy in particular who drove us all crazy. He had a market order. The customer doesn't care if he pays 2 1/8 or 2 1/4. It's a market order. So he's standing there, I'll pay an eighth bid with you guys. Everything is, it might be 2 1/8, 3/8. Somebody walked by and look at it. It's a market order. And of course it is. It's him. I hated that. And then when the market went against him, then he's like, hey guys, can I get that? Can I get that at 3/8? Can I get that at 3/8? I said, why didn't you just buy it when it was offered at 3/8? But yeah, we took care of our brokers in our pits. When we were in a big pit, it was every man for himself, especially when Homestake became a monstrous pit. And I liked that competition. I really did, because I was fast. That was one of my features, is why Jerry wanted to back me as a market maker, because I used to drive him crazy. When somebody would come in and ask for a market and I had an order for that particular option or something like that, I would beat everybody else in the pit. And Jerry was an older guy, and he used to drive me crazy. I was like, because I would take the whole order, which we were allowed to do. And so that's why when he said, if you ever want to become a market maker, he said, I'll back you. That's because he just liked the way my speed and everything. But when it was slow and our pit, wasn't that active and everything like that, it was a different thing. We became friends. I hate to say this in front of everybody, but everybody was doing coke back in those days. Okay, I mean, this one floor broker used to have a tray. How you open up the drawer of your desk, you have all your pencils. That whole tray was just full of coke. You come in, you'd see his desk in the sunlight. You'd see all this dust on it. Well, it wasn't dust; it was coke. And guys would be doing coke in the middle of the day in the pit. They used to have these little atomizers. Stuff. It was, it was the crazy '80s. And I had to get out of there. I had to get out of there. It was a bad thing, and I wanted to get out of there. So I went over to FP Quinn that's where my partner and I started to form a relationship. Then there was the year that there was a drug bust on the CBOE. And it was done so swiftly and so quietly by the FBI agents. What made it so swift and so quiet was the fact that none of them were wearing anything that would identify them as being agents. They either had their coats draped over their arms or they had them rolled up in a ball. But somebody said, there's an FBI agent, standing in front of that exit. Now, back on the old floor, there were exits, fire exits and stuff. The young kids would go out there and smoke a joint and come back in. There were no alarms on them or anything like that. So nobody else says, there's another one down the way also. I always wonder what's going on. Nobody could figure out what was going on. And then all of a sudden, we hear some commotion, And the next thing I know, I'm looking up and I see now they're wearing their jackets. And so did the guy on the fire escape. And so I found out also you couldn't get into a John, men or women. You couldn't get on an elevator. Everything was blocked. I see them holding on to a guy. He's cuffed from behind. And I recognized him right away. He was the floor manager for White Weld. And everybody knew he was dealing. Everybody knew he was dealing. And when he'd come into the pit or his assistant manager would come into the pit, they'd yell out a name, Larry. That was a sign, your Coke's ready to be picked up. And he just had his head down and he's walking along. And then right behind him was his assistant. The same thing, just walking along. And then the third guy, he was an independent trader. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember him ever being involved with them. He was an independent trader like I was. He was not going peacefully. And when the runners saw all this activity, it was pandemonium. These kids were going through their pockets, their purses, their backpacks, their drawers, and throwing everything. We had these trash barrels at the end of these aisles, and they're throwing all that stuff in there. They're trying to do it in secret because the FBI agent was right behind them. So you'd see them throwing stuff in there and trying to get off the floor, and they wouldn't let you off the floor, so it just caused even more of a panic. Meanwhile, this other guy comes by, and he is fighting. He's pulling his arms away from these agents, stuff like that. Get your arms off him. Get your hands off of me. I want to talk to an attorney and everything. And this one African-American man, could have been an offensive lineman for the Chicago Bears, he grabbed him by his jacket, his trading jacket, and he used two hands. He grabbed him, pulled him up close to him, and looked down because he was taller, and he says, look, Ace, you have two ways of getting off this floor. You can come peacefully, or I'm going to throw you on the floor and cuff you hand and foot and drag your sorry ass off the floor. What's it going to be? And he quietly left the floor. Eventually, these agents started leaving. And when the runners saw that the agents were leaving the floor, this, like I said, a pandemonium broke out. They were literally diving into these trash cans. One guy dragged his trash can all the way up into the aisle where all the phone clerks are, and he's pulling stuff out on the floor, and he's grabbing stuff and put them in his pocket, and somebody came over and pulled him away. That's my stuff, and a fight broke out. Well, this was going on all around the floor as everybody was trying to retrieve their junk. Finally, the floor officials, everybody had to come in there and maintain order, but it was the funniest damn thing to see. This guy just pulled that trash can right up and started just throwing everything on the floor. That was the quietest invasion by the drug people, the drug enforcement people, the way they got on that floor so quietly. But yeah, that's the story about the drug bust on the CBOE. I was in a large floor brokerage company, SPS. I think I told you where they moved me out of one pit. I sold my deck and into another pit. They did a surprise urine test. They wanted us all to come in one morning, and you couldn't leave that day. Either you did it before the market opened, or you did it during the day, or you left. And anybody that didn't could be fired. Now, this company was based in New York. It wasn't a Chicago-based company. It was like a security company. But how they got involved in this, I'm not really sure. But they shut down. A month or so after that, there was so much stuff in everybody's urine that it wasn't like one or two people that they could just fire. It was like 80% of the floor or 80% of the brokers that they had, and plus runners, they had to do it too. So, that's when I became a market maker, right after that. When I got the Board of Trade seat, and I went across the street and I was doing stuff, I'd see these guys. Now, when they designed, remember the Board of Trade created the CBOE. So one of the things they required was you couldn't be a market maker and a floor broker in the same pit. Over there, they still had it that way. So I'd see a customer order come in, I'd see, a broker, take an offer and everything, and then he'd, sell that position quarter point high or whatever, that kind of stuff, the front running kind of stuff. And remember when they had the feds down there, and they were trading in the pit, and they were good traders. That's why it was so easy to catch these guys. They were good traders. But yeah, I saw a lot of that. And in our floor, there was still the uptick rule. You couldn't sell a stock short unless there was an uptick. And then during these panics and stuff like that, guys, it was fraud. If you marked your ticket or you told the stock clerk that you were long, that's a lie. So if the SEC everywhere came back and they had it checked off that you said long, that's fraud. But in panic situations, guys didn't care. They took the risk. They would just sell it. There was one trader. He was a clerk. He was a juvenile delinquent. His uncle brought him down the floor. This was Pat Finley from Bridgeport. Oh, he was obnoxious. And he just, it was nothing for him to insult you. Even though he was just a clerk. He would say, "What? You are the dumbest." Did anybody ever tell you you're the dumbest pea in your pod or something? It was just, guys wanted to punch him out all the time. None of us realized that he was absorbing all of this. He was taking this all in. So when his uncle finally retired and put him on a seat and he became a market maker, it turned out to be a pretty good one. And he had a great position in Monsanto, a big position. And their earnings or something were coming up, and he was taking a shot on this. He was taking a shot. He had all the marbles in this one. And it turned out to be in his favor, and he made a ton of money. I remember him having a party for everybody in the pit. He invited this party in Bridgeport. He donated this money to get this gymnasium, this high school or grade school that he went to in Bridgeport, a Catholic school. He put that money into that. He must have, promised God that if I ever get through this. And it never stopped there. When he formed Bridgeport Securities, one of the things he did, he was trying to take some of these guys off the streets. They were problem guys, like he was. He wrote a book called Diamond in the Rough. And he talks about how back when cars had hubcaps, he had quite an industry, he had quite a business with stealing hubcaps and everything. That's how he got in trouble. He turned around to be quite an individual. When options started trading over on commodities and he went across the street, we didn't see him for a while, and I ran into him. I said, "Pat, how's it going and everything?" He said, "Oh, I'm getting killed. I said, "What's wrong? You?" He said, I don't understand." He said, "I got to figure this out." And he just kind of walked away. Some months later, the rumor went out that Pat had a position on where he made like $20 million on soybean oil or soybeans, something like that. And again, giving back. There were just different things that he was doing, charities and stuff like that. That's, there weren't too many guys that did that the way he did. Being a good man, taking care of myself. I used to be in tremendous shape. I was in tremendous shape, and it worked to my advantage. There were so many guys that were smokers, drinkers. I realized I could be a better trader. There were some guys that used to come back. You didn't want to trade with them. They were so drunk. They go to lunch, and I'm talking about, I had 4 or 5 shots of whiskey or something like that. I just learned more discipline for myself as a man, as a father, and try to give back. I could never be as big as Pat Finley was and everything, but yeah, I tried to give back where I could. There was Steve Fawcett. Steve did not do well trading commodities. When he came over to our floor, everybody knew he was kind of a failure over there and didn't pay much attention to him. Steve always sold premium later on in life, which ended up killing him. But at the time, he was long a lot of premium. And I forget what happened. This was around 1978 or so. There was a big volatility explosion, and I can't remember what it was. And guys were being forced to sell seats. And Steve went out and bought 10, 12 seats. And that was the beginning of Fawcett Corp. And then he started putting people on these seats. It's one of these things where, and I've seen this a lot on the floor, where a guy's ego goes up with his equity. And then they catch a wave. Some guy comes on the floor just as oil stocks are really hot and they're making a ton of money. And then all of a sudden that sector just dries up and the money goes somewhere else. Bam, they're deflated. They can't make the same money in those oil stocks like they did. They were like shooting stars and just flash through the sky. Brilliant, beautiful. burn out into a cinder. And Steve lasted a long time until the crash of '87. He took down his whole firm. I mean, we had a guy in our pit. He came in, and one of the money managers came in and said, you got to close out all your positions. I said, what? We're done. We're done. It was sad to see all this. Steve took them all down. He had protection and stuff like that, but it was like how fast and brilliant. He lasted longer than a lot of guys. And then instead of learning his lesson, he got caught in that United Airlines thing in '89, and that was it. He was done. He was banned from the floor and everything like that. But he was something else to watch because sometimes he just wanted to do a big trade. Nobody else would take a trade. Goldman Sachs would come in at the end of the day and they wanted to buy 5,000 puts or something like that. And not at the end of the day, we'll do it. So I'll do it. Just to show off. Just to say I did it. Not that it was economically smart. It was his ego, which ended up bringing him down. We loved it. We all knew that we probably should, instead of fighting with one another, we should probably get together and form one big exchange. I kept saying, why are we doing this? Let's get together and everything like that. But there were some old timers on the Board of Trade absolutely hated the guys on the CME and vice versa. The CBOE was like kind of in the middle of all this, but it was fun. We played baseball, softball, stuff like that. We even had boxing in the early years. We had a couple guys that were Golden Glovers that were still boxing and stuff. So yeah, it was fun. But we should have merged a long time before we did. I still had my seat, and I put my son on the seat. I could still trade on the floor as long as he was on the floor. I still had my account and everything like that. So I just kept trading. I'd learn my craft before I'd go down there, especially as a market maker. The guy who was backing me, he was an over-the-counter trader from Minneapolis. And this is before there was any NASDAQ or anything like that. And so his advice to me was, if it feels like they should be bought, buy them. If it feels like they should be sold, sell them. He was more of these intuitive, instinctive guys. And you had to be, because when you were making markets as an over-the-counter trader, you had to be 100 up no matter what. So you never knew how much this guy had to buy or how much to sell and everything. But that was his advice. And he was a big, big premium seller, because in the beginning, those options, I was amazing how long the premium would stay into some of these options right up to expiration. So he made his money just selling premium like crazy, to the point where when I was with him and this other guy, he got caught in a buyout. And I remember the clearing firm coming up to me. One of the managers came up to me and said, do you guys realize that Jerry could be taking you out? I said, what? Jerry's got a very bad position. If you don't help him get out of this position, he's not only taking himself down, because your money's commingled with his. He's going to take you down as well. So that was a scary situation. So I had to learn this was not the right way to do things. That's how I got caught. I almost went bankrupt twice. Jerry put $50,000 in my account. I got it up to about 100. Bang! In about 4 days, I got it down to about $2,200. Got caught in a volatility explosion, and I had all these ratio spreads on. Should have learned my lesson. I went into a Bally. Remember Bally Manufacturing? I went into that pit. And I got on to kind of the same sort of business. The premiums were really large and everything, but there was a reason for that. We didn't know it at the time, but they were going to be spinning off part of their business. They had the casinos, they had the pinball machines, health clubs. They were going to spin off. I forget which one was which. And I was in the pit. The new stock was on a when-issued basis, but we didn't have the equipment to show us where that stock was, where Goldman Sachs and Oppenheimer and Solomon Brothers, everything, they were like pow, pow, pow. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. They were trading that other element. And we were just giving them halves and points and everything to some of these hedges that they were putting on. And bang, when that all came together, I went from, again, about $100,000 down to about $1,500. And Jerry was on vacation. He was taking a trip through China, and he came back right after that. And my buddy, who was also trading with me, he had more money. He was up around $300,000, $400,000, and he was down to about $2,000. And we had to tell him, They said, guys, the deal was I put $50,000 in the account. Anything we made over and above that, we would split 50-50. Okay? I'm not putting any more money back in your accounts. It's up to you guys to make it back. He made it back big time. Again, I was very, very, I was scared to death at that point. I have to change my style. I took a week off and I realized I can't do these. I got to learn a better way of handling this stuff. So it was a great experience for me. Thank God Jerry stuck with us. My knees, at that time I had 4-5 arthroscopic surgeries, and I was due for another one. And my whole career, very seldom did I ever sit. Even on the slow days, I sort of stood, just because I gave you an edge. When you could see brokers thinking they might be coming into your pit and stuff like that. I was in agony. I just couldn't take it anymore. It was a bad day for me when I finally quit. I'll never forget that. I was in my office. I was actually crying because I didn't know what I was going to do, but I could not do that. So everybody said, "Oh, Tom, that's all right. You'll work electronic." Well, it's not the same thing. When you're on the floor, you are the market.